The email notification cut through the silence like a blade. Contract termination, effective immediately. Bryn Castellano's fingers trembled as she stared at her laptop screen, watching $23 million vanish with a single corporate decree. Behind her, footsteps echoed across the marble floor of their Hamptons estate, measured, deliberate, wrong. "Pack light," Declan said, his voice stripped of warmth. "The penthouse is mine. The accounts are frozen. And honestly, Bryn," he paused at the doorway, silhouette sharp against the sunset bleeding through floor-to-ceiling windows, "you're not the powerhouse I need anymore." What he didn't see, what nobody ever saw, was the microscopic curl at the corner of her mouth before the tears came. The kind of smile a chess master wears when their opponent takes the bait. Because Bryn Castellano wasn't just losing everything. She was about to take it all. But here's the question that'll haunt you. Have you ever loved someone so much you destroy them just to prove they never really knew you? Drop a like if you've ever been underestimated. Hit subscribe because this revenge story gets dark. And comment below. Would you forgive betrayal or burn the whole world down? 3 years earlier, Bryn had made a choice that would define everything. She sat in a glass-walled office 53 floors above Manhattan, watching algorithmic patterns dance across 6 monitors. Numbers that represented power. Real power, the kind that moved markets, toppled competitors, made billionaires beg. Ms. Castellano, her assistant Farah, knocked softly. "The Phoenix Syndicate Board wants confirmation on the Meridian acquisition." Bryn didn't look up. "Tell them 72 hours. And Farah? Nobody uses my real name outside this building. To the world, I'm still just a reclusive founder's representative." Because that was the beautiful lie. Bryn Castellano didn't just work for Phoenix Syndicate Technologies, the fastest-growing contract negotiation empire in North America. She'd built it from her Columbia dorm room at 19, spinning code and strategy into a billion-dollar machine before she could legally drink. By 26, she controlled government contracts, corporate mergers, tech acquisitions that shaped Silicon Valley itself. And absolutely nobody knew. Not the Forbes writers who kept trying to identify the mysterious tech genius. Not the competitors she buried quarterly. Not the politicians whose campaigns she bankrolled through shell corporations. And definitely not Declan Thorne, the charming wealth management consultant she'd met at a charity gala 2 years prior. The man she'd married 6 months ago. The man currently asleep in their bed, dreaming of a future he thought he controlled. How do you love someone completely while hiding your entire existence? You learn to compartmentalize. You master performance. You become two people, the powerful and the powerless, and pray the walls never crumble. That night, Bryn came home to their brownstone in Brooklyn Heights, designer heels clicking against hardwood, and found Declan cooking pasta in a kitchen that cost more than most people's cars. "There's my beautiful wife," he smiled, that practice charm that had hooked her heart. Tall, sharp-featured, with silver threading through dark hair that made him look distinguished rather than aging. How was the museum fundraiser? The lie came smooth as silk. Exhausting. Rich people arguing about impressionism like it matters. "Everything you touch matters, Bryn." He pulled her close, and God help her, she melted into it, into the warmth, the illusion of partnership. "I closed the Vandermeer account today. $3 million in assets under management. That's amazing, baby." What she didn't say, "I know. I approved the back-end data access that made it possible. I've been steering clients your way for 18 months because I wanted you to feel successful. Because I thought if you felt strong, you'd never need to tear me down. Ever notice how we build pedestals for the people we love, then act surprised when they look down on us? But cracks were forming. Small things first. Declan's phone angled away during texts. Weekend golf trips with clients she could never verify. The way he'd started questioning her volunteer work at the Children's Literacy Foundation, her actual passion project, the one real thing in a life built on strategic deception. "You spend so much time with those kids," he'd said last week, voice edged with something cold. "Maybe focus on building our future instead of saving the world." Our future, like she wasn't bankrolling every luxury he touched. Then came the Prometheus global contract. Bryn had spent 8 months negotiating a government infrastructure deal worth $400 million. Phoenix Syndicate's cut, $23 million, enough to expand into European markets and cement her legacy. The contract was locked, signed, celebrated internally. Until it wasn't. The call came on a Tuesday. Prometheus Global CEO, a silver-haired shark named Torrance Webb, delivered the news with bureaucratic efficiency. We're exercising the withdrawal clause. The board feels Phoenix Syndicate lacks the executive stability for a project of this magnitude. Executive stability? Bryn's voice could have cut glass. Our performance metrics are flawless. We've never missed a deadline. It's not about performance, Ms. Castellano. It's about perception. And frankly, there are concerns about your organization's leadership coherence. The line went dead. Bryn sat in her secret office, mind racing through possibilities. Phoenix Syndicate structure was bulletproof. Her anonymity was protected by layers of legal entities and NDAs that would make the CIA jealous. Unless she pulled up internal communications logs, fingers flying across keys with the muscle memory of someone who'd learned to code before she learned to drive. Backend access, server timestamps, cross-referenced IP addresses. And there it was, a data breach. Minor, surgical, 3 weeks old. Someone had accessed sealed contract files from a personal device, forwarding strategic documents to an encrypted email that bounced through servers in the Cayman Islands before landing at Prometheus Global's executive office. The IP address traced back to their home network. Declan's laptop. What's worse, being stabbed in the back or realizing the knife was there all along, and you chose to ignore the blade? Bryn's hand shook, not with rage, but with something more dangerous. Recognition. All those late nights he'd borrowed her personal laptop, because his was updating. The questions about her work that seemed innocent until you mapped them against corporate espionage. The way he'd celebrated when she mentioned the Prometheus deal, then subtly discouraged her from pursuing expansion. He'd been sabotaging her, quietly, deliberately, for months. But why? She found the answer in his hidden email folder. The one he thought was password protected, but wasn't. Not to someone who'd built cybersecurity protocols for Fortune 500 companies. Subject. Final phase confirmation. Torrance. The contract withdrawal is executed. As discussed, Bryn will be financially vulnerable within the quarter, forcing dependency. I'll maintain the marriage until her remaining assets are accessible, then exit cleanly. The prenup you helped draft ensures I walk with half of what she's hidden. She's too proud to fight dirty. Appreciate the Vandermeer referral. $3 million is a good start on the new life. DT. The email was dated 4 days ago. Bryn read it 17 times, each pass carving deeper understanding into her heart. This was an impulse. This was an affair gone wrong, or a moment of weakness. This was a long game, a con, a calculated destruction of everything she built, orchestrated by the man who whispered, "I love you," every morning. She pulled out her personal journal, an old habit from therapy, the one place she allowed vulnerability, and wrote, "What if I'm wrong? What if confronting him destroys the last shred of us that's real? What if I become the monster he clearly thinks I am, some cold corporate entity instead of a woman who just wanted to be loved for herself, not her empire?" Her pen hovered over the page. Then she wrote, "But what if letting him win destroys me instead?" The Prometheus contract had never been withdrawn. Bryn had fabricated the entire crisis 72 hours before it happened, using her Phoenix Syndicate authority to create a phantom termination email, fake legal documents, even a deepfake video call with an actor playing Torrance Webb. The real Torrance was golfing in Scotland, completely unaware his identity had been borrowed for corporate theater. It was a loyalty test, a trap, and Declan had sprung it beautifully. The moment bad news hit, Bryn had watched him through hidden cameras she installed a month ago during a security upgrade. She'd seen his face cycle through surprise, calculation, and finally, a smile. Small, quick, victorious. He'd made calls immediately. To Torrance's assistant, confirming the withdrawal. To his lawyer, discussing asset protection. To someone named Shane, whose number wasn't saved in his contacts. "It's done," Declan had said into the phone, voice low. She's broken. Give it 2 weeks, and I'll have access to the offshore accounts. Then we move. Shane. Bryn pulled surveillance footage from the past 6 months, cross-referencing locations and timestamps. Shane Keller, 28, former marketing executive at a firm Declan's company consulted for. Blonde, sharp-eyed, ambitious. His mistress. They'd been meeting every Thursday at a boutique hotel in Soho, the kind with a discreet entrance and rooms that cost more per night than most people's rent. Declan paid cash, or thought he did, unaware that Bryn had flagged his ATM withdrawals months ago when patterns shifted. The footage was damning, intimate, cruel in its casualness, the way he touched Shane's face with the same tenderness he faked at home. But here's what shattered Bryn completely. In one recording, Shane asked, "Do you feel bad about her?" And Declan laughed. Actually laughed. Bryn's a nice girl playing dress-up in a world she doesn't understand. She inherited money and thinks that's power. It's honestly sad. Inherited. Bryn had Bill Phoenix Syndicate from code and ambition, and 70-hour weeks that destroyed her health and social life. She negotiated billion-dollar deals, while men twice her age tried to pat her head and offer coffee-fetching duties. She'd earned every impossible thing. And to him, she was just a trust fund princess playing pretend. The tears came then, hot, bitter, unstoppable. Bryn sat alone in her office at 2 a.m., watching her marriage dissolve across multiple screens, and let herself break. Because here's the truth about loving someone who doesn't see you. Part of you dies with every ignored achievement, every diminished dream, every moment they choose a version of you they invented over the person you actually are. She cried for an hour. Then she opened a secure file labeled Contingency and started planning. When Declan came home that Tuesday, the day of the contract loss, Bryn was waiting with Academy Award-worthy devastation. "It's gone," she sobbed, makeup deliberately smeared, wearing the cashmere robe he bought her for their anniversary. The Prometheus contract. They pulled it. $23 million just gone. She watched him try to hide his satisfaction, watched him school his features into concern, while his eyes calculated angles. "Baby, hey, it's okay," he soothed, pulling her close. She felt his heartbeat, steady, unbothered, mechanical. "These things happen in business. You'll recover." "I don't know if I can." "Declan, She pulled back, meeting his eyes with perfect vulnerability. "What if I'm not good enough? What if I've been faking competence this whole time?" Give him what he expects. Feed the narrative. Let him think he's won. "You're not faking anything," Declan said, but his tone carried an edge. Like he was reading lines from a script he'd memorized poorly. "But maybe this is a sign. To step back. Focus on us instead of these high-stakes gambles." Translation. Stop working. Become dependent. Make the asset transfer easier. "Maybe you're right," Bryn whispered. That night, he initiated divorce with surgical precision. The paperwork arrived via courier. Not a conversation, not a plea for counseling, just legal documents and a highlighted signature line. The prenup they'd signed gave him 50% of marital assets, a category they defined loosely because Bryn had hidden her real wealth in corporate structures he couldn't touch. Or so he thought. "I need a clean break," Declan said when she called, his voice distant. "You're spiraling, Bryn, and I can't watch you self-destruct. This is for both of us." For both of us. Like betrayal was an act of mercy. She signed the papers with shaking hands, adding dramatic pauses, and choked sobs for the benefit of his hidden recording device. Yes, she'd found that too, a voice-activated app on his phone that captured their conversations for legal protection. How do you perform grief when your heart is actually breaking? You lean into the real pain underneath. You let the rage of being underestimated fuel the tears. You make it so convincing that even you almost believe the role. The Hamptons estate went to him. The Brooklyn brownstone, hers. The joint accounts were divided, giving him $3 million while she kept $2 million. What Declan didn't know. The Hamptons estate was mortgaged to oblivion through a shell company she controlled. He'd inherited $12 million in debt, disguised as luxury. The Brooklyn brownstone was worth $8 million and climbing. Located in a neighborhood poised for gentrification, she'd engineered through strategic investments. The accounts he claimed held freshly laundered money from a cryptocurrency scheme she'd traced back to his business partner, Torrance Webb, a scheme she'd already reported anonymously to the SEC, with evidence time-stamped to post-divorce. Within 6 months, Declan would be drowning in legal fees and IRS audits while she watched from the shadows. But that wasn't enough. Because here's what you learn when someone tries to erase you. Survival isn't revenge. Thriving is. 3 weeks post-divorce, Bryn received a call from an unknown number. He's celebrating. A woman's voice said, familiar but strained, champagne at Morton's. He's telling everyone you fell apart, that he escaped a sinking ship. I thought you should know. Bryn sat in her office, surrounded by monitors displaying Declan's every digital move, and smiled into the phone. Thank you, Landry. Landry Voss. Her best friend since grad school, the whip-smart psychology PhD, who understood human behavior, like most people understood breathing. Loyal, fierce, and currently embedded so deep in Declan's life that he thought she was a salvation. Because Shane Keller had broken up with Declan 2 weeks ago, devastated by guilt and his financial instability. Rumors Bryn had carefully planted through social circles. Declan, raw and seeking comfort, had found it in Landry, the gorgeous, empathetic redhead who coincidentally joined his gym, his networking group, his favorite coffee shop's morning routine. The woman he'd started dating with almost pathetic speed. The woman who reported his every word, every plan, every secret directly to Bryn. It was perfect, almost too perfect, until Landry's voice cracked. Bryn, I need to tell you something, she said during their 4th week of operation. He's not entirely what we thought. He's got demons. His father embezzled money when he was 12. His family lost everything. He's terrified of poverty. And sometimes when he talks about you, there's real pain. Like he genuinely loved you, but couldn't reconcile it with his fear. Bryn's fingers froze over her keyboard. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe we should stop. Maybe this revenge is turning us into the villains. He's broken too, Bryn. And I think, Landry's breath hitched, I think I'm starting to care about him. The words detonated like a grenade in Bryn's chest. Your best friend. The person you trusted with everything. Falling for the man who destroyed you. You're compromised, Bryn said, voice hollow. Extract yourself. Now. It's not that simple. Landry. Bryn's tone could have frozen oceans. He stole from me. Lied to me. Built a relationship on calculated exploitation. His trauma doesn't erase my trauma. Now either you're with me or you're with him. Choose. Silence stretched, painful and infinite. I'm with you, Landry finally whispered. Always. I needed you to know it's costing me. That's the price of loyalty in a world built on lies. You bleed for it, then hope the wound was worth it. But Landry's hesitation had consequences. During a moment of weakness, she left her phone unlocked at Declan's apartment. He'd seen a single text notification from an encrypted number. Evidence uploaded. Phase 3 ready for execution. Declan, paranoid from a lifetime of betrayal, had hired a private investigator. A cheap one, sloppy, but motivated. Within 48 hours, the investigator traced the encrypted number to a server cluster owned by Phoenix Syndicate Technologies, the same company that had lost the Prometheus contract, the same company Declan had sabotaged, assuming it was a faceless corporation ripe for corporate espionage. He didn't connect it to Bryn. Not yet, but he knew something was wrong. Someone's watching me, he told Landry over wine, eyes darting around the restaurant like prey sensing a predator. Corporate espionage, maybe, or... He leaned closer. What if Bryn wasn't as broke as she claimed? What if she's behind this? Landry, Academy Award worthy in her own right. Feigned shock. Bryn? She could barely function after you left. She's probably still crying into pints of ice cream. But she called Bryn immediately after, voice tight with panic. He knows. Not everything, but enough to start digging. We have maybe 72 hours before he connects the dots. Bryn sat in her office, staring at financial projections that suddenly felt irrelevant. Because in her quest for a perfect revenge, she'd forgotten the fundamental rule of chess. When you're busy calculating checkmate, you stop watching your own king. Declan had accessed a minor Phoenix Syndicate account through a security gap Landry's phone had created. A gap so small Bryn had missed it in her surveillance. He downloaded client contracts, budget reports, internal memos. And in those memos, buried in corporate jargon, were references to founder Castellano's directives. Her last name, attached to a billion-dollar empire, sitting in his hands like a loaded gun. If he went public, if he exposed her identity out of spite or desperation, the entire facade crumbled. Competitors would target her. Regulators would investigate. The anonymity that made Phoenix Syndicate untouchable would evaporate, and with it, her power. She'd lose everything. Actually, truly lose. For the first time in 3 years, Bryn felt genuine fear. "Pull back," she told Landry, hands shaking as she typed emergency protocols into her system. "Shut down the operation. We abort now before." "Before what?" Landry's voice was raw. "Before we finish what he started? Bryn, if we stop now, he wins. He gets away with everything. If we continue, I lose Phoenix Syndicate. I lose my life's work. Is that victory? One more slip and I lose everything." The words from her journal haunted her. This was a slip, the moment her perfect plan cracked. But Landry said something that changed the game. Or we accelerate. We hit him so hard, so fast, that he doesn't have time to weaponize what he found. We end this in 72 hours. Consequences be damned. Bryn looked at her reflection in the dark monitor, a woman she barely recognized, dressed in power but drowning in doubt. Who are you really? The girl who built an empire from code and dreams? Or the monster your ex-husband's betrayal created? She thought about the children at her literacy foundation, the ones who looked at her like she hung the moon. She thought about the employees at Phoenix Syndicate who trusted her leadership. She thought about the version of herself who'd married Declan, hoping love could coexist with ambition. Then she thought about his laugh when Shane asked if he felt bad. "It's honestly sad." 72 hours, Bryn said into the phone, voice hardening into something sharp and unyielding. "We burn it all down." But here's what neither Bryn nor Declan knew. In a high-rise office 12 blocks from Phoenix Syndicate headquarters, Torrance Webb, the real one, sat reviewing documents his assistant had flagged as unusual. Documents showing backdoor access to Prometheus global servers. Documents revealing a corporate espionage scheme he'd allegedly orchestrated with Declan Thorne. Documents he'd never seen before in his life. Torrance picked up his phone, dialing a number that connected to powerful people with dangerous resources. "We have a problem," he said quietly. "Someone's playing us all, and I want to know who." The real game was about to begin. Bryn didn't sleep. She sat in her Phoenix Syndicate office at 4 a.m., surrounded by monitors displaying data streams that looked like the Matrix to normal people but read like a battle plan to her. Declan's digital footprint, Torrance Webb's travel schedule, Landry's location tracker, corporate filings, bank transactions, security camera feeds from 3 different states. Everything connected. Everything mattered. "Talk to me, Farah," Bryn said into her headset, her assistant patching in from a satellite office in Boston. Declan hired a second investigator, Farah reported, voice crisp despite the hour. Former FBI Cybercrimes Unit. Name's Kelton Riggs. He specializes in corporate espionage cases. If anyone can trace your digital signature back to Phoenix Syndicate, it's him. 72 hours just became 48. What's his weakness? Gambling debts. 200,000 to a loan shark in Atlantic City. He's desperate for a big payout. Bryn's fingers flew across her keyboard, accessing offshore accounts she kept for exactly this kind of emergency. Wire him 300,000 from an anonymous source. Include a message. Stop investigating Phoenix Syndicate. This is your only warning. He'll think it's a bribe from us, get spooked, and either take the money and run or report us to authorities. And if he reports, then we leaked evidence that Declan hired him using embezzled funds from the Vandermeer account. Funds I've been tracking since day one. Kelton goes down for accepting payment from criminal proceeds. Either way, he's neutralized. This is what power actually looks like. Not yelling, not force, but understanding pressure points and applying exact calibration until people break in predictable ways. Farah hesitated. Bryn, are you okay? The question landed like a punch. Because no, she wasn't okay. She was operating on fury and coffee and the kind of sleep deprivation that made reality feel thin. But okay wasn't the goal anymore. Winning was. I'm perfect, Bryn lied. Execute the transfer. She disconnected and pulled up Landry's latest report. Her best friend had stayed with Declan last night, at his request, because paranoia was making him cling to anything familiar. The audio recording was crystal clear. Declan: I think Bryn might be more connected than we thought. What if she's actually powerful? What if I underestimated her? Landry: Powerful? Baby. She could barely sign the divorce papers without crying. You're being paranoid. Declan: Then explain the Phoenix Syndicate connection. Explain why a billion-dollar company cares about my investigation. Landry: Maybe you stumbled onto something unrelated. Corporate espionage happens all the time. You're not that special. The last line was pure Landry, sharp enough to redirect his ego, soft enough to feel like support. Bryn should have felt grateful. Instead, she felt hollow. Because listening to Landry fake intimacy with Declan, hearing her manufactured laughter and carefully crafted responses, Bryn realized something devastating. This is what I sound like. This is what I've been doing for years. Performing emotions, calculating connections, treating relationships like chess moves. What if I'm not the hero? What if I'm just another player in a game where everyone loses their humanity? She shook off the thought. No time for philosophy. Only execution. Hour 12. Declan's new business venture was called Apex Strategies, a wealth management firm built on clients he'd poached from his old company and connections he'd leveraged through Bryn's social circle. The irony was delicious. He'd use her network to build a thing that was supposed to prove he didn't need her. Within 3 months post-divorce, Apex had grown to $15 million in assets under management. Impressive for a startup. What Declan didn't know: $8 million of those assets belonged to shell companies Bryn controlled. Fake clients with real money. All designed to inflate his success while giving her complete operational oversight. She'd been inside his business from day one. Now she activated phase 2. A woman named Sutton Hale walked into Apex Strategies' Midtown office at precisely 10 a.m., dressed in a Chanel suit that cost more than Declan's first car. Sutton was 73, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, and worth approximately $400 million thanks to a tech fortune her late husband had built in the 90s. She was also an actress Bryn had hired for $50,000 and a weekend in the Maldives. Mr. Thorne. Sutton smiled, extending a hand heavy with diamond rings. I've heard exceptional things about your firm. I'm looking to move $300 million in assets, and I need someone hungry enough to fight for maximum returns. Declan nearly fell over himself, welcoming her. Bryn watched via hack security cameras, observing his performance. The charm offensive, the practice humility, the way he leaned into exactly the kind of aggressive wealth management that attracted big clients and regulatory scrutiny in equal measure. Mrs. Hale, I promise you won't regret this decision, Declan said, signing documents she'd brought. Apex Strategies operates on a principle of maximum calculated risk for maximum reward. Translation: I cut corners. I exploit loopholes. I do whatever generates commissions. Perfect. Because the contracts Sutton signed weren't just investment agreements. They were legal traps, written by Bryn's team of lawyers, designed to trigger SEC investigations the moment Declan executed certain high-risk trades. Trades he'd absolutely execute, because his ego demanded proving himself. One more thing, Sutton added, voice dropping conspiratorially. I have a delicate situation. An ex-business partner trying to claim assets from my late husband's estate. Could you help me hide certain accounts? Offshore, untraceable? Declan didn't even hesitate. Absolutely. I have experience with asset protection strategies that ensure complete privacy. There it was. Conspiracy to commit fraud, recorded in 4K. Bryn closed her laptop and allowed herself 30 seconds of satisfaction. Then her phone rang. Unknown number. Ms. Castellano, a smooth male voice said. My name is Torrance Webb. I believe we should talk about the industrial espionage scheme someone executed using my identity. Her blood turned to ice. Hour 24. They met at a restaurant in Greenwich Village. Neutral territory. Public enough to prevent violence. Private enough for dangerous conversation. Torrance Webb arrived exactly on time, wearing a Tom Ford suit and the expression of a man who'd built a fortune by reading people's lies. He was 62, but moved like 50, with steel gray hair and eyes that calculated net worth in microseconds. "You're younger than I expected," Torrance said, sitting across from Bryn in a leather booth. "When my security team traced the fabricated documents back to Phoenix Syndicate, I assumed I'd be meeting some old guard corporate raider, not the woman from the charity galas." Bryn kept her face neutral, but internally she was recalculating everything. "You know who I am. I know you're brilliant at hiding. Took my people 3 weeks to confirm you actually run Phoenix Syndicate. The shell companies, the proxy boards, the NDAs, impressive architecture. But here's the issue." He leaned forward. "Someone used my company to destroy your marriage and sabotage your contracts. Someone made it look like I conspired with your ex-husband. And I don't appreciate being framed. I didn't frame you. No. But you did create a fake contract termination using my company's letterhead. You did fabricate email correspondence. You did hack our servers to make Declan Thorne believe I was complicit in his scheme." Torrance smiled without warmth. "I could bury you in lawsuits, regulatory investigations, criminal charges. Instead, I'm here. Want to know why? Because powerful men always want something." "I'm listening," Bryn said carefully. "Declan Thorne actually did try to sabotage your Prometheus global contract. He sent my company proprietary Phoenix Syndicate information 3 months ago, hoping we'd use it to undercut your bid. We ignored it. Bad business to engage with industrial espionage when the perpetrator is sloppy enough to leave digital fingerprints." He slid a tablet across the table, showing email chains, metadata, digital signatures. All real, all damning. "But then you retaliated," Torrance continued. "You created this elaborate revenge scheme that accidentally made it look like I was involved. Now I've got federal investigators asking questions about business practices. You created a problem for me, Ms. Castellano. So here's my offer. Help me destroy Declan Thorne completely. I mean, salt the earth. Nothing left destruction, and I'll make your legal problems disappear. Refuse, and I'll expose Phoenix Syndicate's leadership structure to every competitor and regulator in North America." Bryn's mind raced through scenarios, probabilities, risk assessments. This is the moment. Ally with power or stand alone. "Why do you care about destroying Declan?" she asked. "Because I don't tolerate theft. He stole from you. He tried to steal from me. And men like him. Entitled. Mediocre men who think charm substitutes for competence. They're parasites. I've spent 40 years building Prometheus Global on merit. He represents everything I despise." There was real anger there. Personal. "What happened?" Bryn pressed. Torrance's jaw tightened. "My daughter married someone like him. Charming. Ambitious. Utterly hollow. He embezzled from her trust fund. Destroyed her credit. Left her with 2 kids and nothing. By the time I discovered it, he'd fled to the Cayman Islands with $17 million. Untouchable behind international banking laws. Everyone's fighting ghosts. Every revenge is just history trying to rewrite itself." "I'm sorry," Bryn said and meant it. "Don't be sorry. Be smart. Partner with me. We combine resources, your technical expertise, my corporate influence, and we don't just hurt Declan. We erase him." It was tempting. God, it was tempting. "But what about Landry Voss?" Bryn asked. "My friend who's embedded with him. She's in danger if this escalates." Torrance waved dismissively. "Extract her. Tonight. Then we move. And if I say no?" His smile was arctic. "Then you're an enemy. And I don't leave enemies standing. This is a choice. Become the monster they fear, or stay vulnerable and hope mercy matters." Bryn thought about the girl she'd been at 19, coding in a dorm room, dreaming of building something that mattered. She thought about the woman she'd become, powerful, hidden, so focused on protection she'd forgotten connection. She thought about Declan's laugh, Landry's hesitation, her own reflection in dark monitors. 72 hours, she heard herself say. "We end this in 72 hours. But Landry stays safe. Non-negotiable." Torrance extended his hand. Deal. They shook on mutual destruction. Two wounded people wielding power like a weapon because vulnerability had failed them. And somewhere across the city, Declan Thorne had no idea the hammer was falling. Hour 48. Kelton Riggs, the investigator, took Bryn's $300,000 and disappeared to Mexico within 18 hours. His final report to Declan was 7 words. Phoenix Syndicate is untouchable. Stop digging. Run. Declan, predictably, did not run. Instead, he doubled down, hiring a third investigator, this one with actual competence. A woman named Greer Ashford who'd worked corporate security for Goldman Sachs and had a reputation for finding needles in digital haystacks. Greer lasted 36 hours before Torrance Webb's legal team buried her in cease and desist orders, threatened her professional license, and made it clear that continuing the investigation meant career suicide. She quit, but not before sending Declan a partial report. Phoenix Syndicate, founded by B. Castellano in 2019. Founder identity sealed by court order. Multiple shell companies trace back to primary accounts in your ex-wife's name. Recommend immediate legal consultation. This is beyond my scope. Declan read the report 17 times, sitting in his Apex Strategies office, watching his perfect narrative crumble. Bryn. It was always Bryn. The woman he'd pitted. The woman he dismissed as inherited wealth-playing entrepreneur. The woman he betrayed because he thought she was weak. She'd built an empire. She'd hidden it from everyone, including him. And now she was dismantling his life with the precision of someone who understood power in ways he never would. His hands shook as he called Landry. "We need to talk," he said, voice tight. "Right now." Hour 52. They met at his apartment. The luxury high-rise he bought with divorce settlement money, decorated with furniture that screamed desperate for validation. Landry arrived in jeans and a sweater, playing the role of concerned girlfriend so well that even Bryn, listening via the wire Landry wore, almost believed it. "What's wrong?" Landry asked, touching his face with manufactured tenderness. Bryn, Declan said, pacing like a caged animal. "She owns Phoenix Syndicate. She's been..." He laughed, hollow and broken. "She's been playing me since before we even married. Everything. Every client I thought I earned. Every success. It was her. Watch this. Everyone. Watch a man realize he was never protagonist. That's impossible," Landry said, following script. Bryn couldn't organize a grocery list without falling apart. That's what she wanted us to think. Declan's voice rose, cracking. "Don't you see? The contract loss, the divorce, my business success, all of it manipulation. She's been inside my life, my work, my head, and I never saw her." He sank onto the couch, and for the first time, Landry saw something that made her chest tighten. Genuine fear. Not the calculated emotion she'd been reporting to Bryn, but real, raw terror. "What if she destroys me?" Declan whispered. "What if everything I built collapses? Landry, I came from nothing. My father embezzled money when I was 12. We lost our house, our friends, our entire life. I swore I'd never be poor again, never be powerless. And now..." His voice broke. Landry's hand, meant to comfort as part of the performance, hesitated midair, because she'd studied psychology for 8 years. She understood trauma responses, and what she was seeing wasn't the villain Bryn had described. It was a broken man terrified of repeating his worst childhood nightmare, making catastrophic choices because fear had drowned every better instinct. He's broken too. The thought arrived unbidden, unwelcome, devastating. "Declan," Landry said slowly, her voice no longer scripted. "What did you do, specifically, to Bryn?" And he told her everything. The contract sabotage, the coordinated betrayal with Torrance, or what we thought was Torrance, the affair with Shane, the plan to drain Bryn's hidden accounts and disappear. "I thought she was weak," Declan said, staring at his hands. "I thought I was smarter. I thought..." He looked up, eyes red. "I thought if I took everything from her, I'd finally feel safe. That's sick, isn't it? I tried to destroy someone I loved because I was terrified she'd leave me poor. Ever notice how the worst damage comes from wounded people trying to protect wounds instead of healing them?" Landry stood, mind spinning, heart fracturing. I need to go, she managed. Landry, wait. But she was already out the door, stumbling into the hallway, ripping the wire from under her sweater and crushing it beneath her heel. She called Bryn from the street, traffic roaring around her. I can't do this, Landry said, tears streaming. Bryn, I can't. He's not a monster. He's damaged. And what we're doing, it's not justice. It's just more damage. We're breaking someone who's already broken. Silence on the line, cold and infinite. Are you backing out? Bryn's voice could have cut steel. I'm saying maybe we stop before we become a thing we're fighting. Maybe we... He stole from me, Landry. He lied to me for years. He laughed about my pain. You heard him. And now you're doing the same thing to him. Don't you see? This isn't healing you. It's infecting you. It's turning you into... Into what? Say it. Landry closed her eyes. Into him. The call disconnected. Bryn sat alone in her office, surrounded by screens showing Declan's collapsing empire, and felt something crack inside her chest. Not her heart. That had broken months ago. Something deeper. The foundation she'd built herself on. What if Landry's right? What if I'm so focused on winning that I've forgotten what winning costs? She pulled up old photos on her phone. Her and Declan at their wedding, laughing in the rain because the outdoor ceremony had been surprised by a storm. Her and Landry in grad school, pulling all-nighters and dreaming of changing the world. When had dreams become weapons? When had love become leverage? Her reflection stared back from the dark monitor. A woman she barely recognized, dressed in power but drowning in isolation. And for the first time in 72 hours, Bryn Castellano allowed herself to ask, is this who I want to be? Hour 60. The SEC investigation into Apex Strategies launched at 9 a.m. the next morning. Triggered by Sutton Hale's fake investment contracts and the offshore account request Declan had stupidly agreed to, federal investigators descended on his office with warrants, forensic accountants, and the kind of bureaucratic efficiency that destroys lives. They seized servers, froze accounts, interviewed clients. Within hours, Declan's $15 million in assets under management evaporated as panicked investors fled. His business partner quit via text message. His landlord, smelling blood, demanded 6 months rent up front or immediate eviction. By noon, Apex Strategies was functionally dead. Bryn watched it happen from her office, feeling nothing. Not triumph, not satisfaction. Just a vast, echoing emptiness. Torrance Webb called at 2 p.m. voice pleased. Excellent work. He'll be bankrupt within the week. Probably facing criminal charges within the month. Couldn't have orchestrated it better myself. Good. Bryn heard herself say. There's one loose end. Your friend, Landry Voss. She broke protocol last night. Destroyed her wire. Cut contact. She's a liability now. Knows too much. I have people who can... No. The word came out sharp final. She's out. Completely. You don't touch her. Bryn, in this business. I said no, Torrance. That's the line. Cross it, and you're my enemy instead of my partner. A pause. Then, very well. But she stays silent. If she talks, she won't. Bryn disconnected and immediately called Landry. Voicemail. She tried again. And again. 23 calls, all ignored. Finally, a text arrived. I'm sorry for everything, but I can't be part of this anymore. I hope you find peace, Bryn, because revenge won't give it to you. Love, L. I hope you find peace. The words burned like acid, because Landry was right. Bryn had won. Declan was destroyed. Her empire was intact. She'd proven herself untouchable, brilliant, powerful. And she'd never felt more alone in her life. She sat in her office as the sun set over Manhattan, surrounded by the machinery of her perfect revenge, and finally let herself cry. Not elegant tears, not strategic vulnerability, just raw, ugly sobbing for the girl she used to be, the friend she'd lost, the marriage that had died long before the divorce papers. This is what winning looks like. Empty offices and silent phones and victories that taste like ashes. Her personal journal lay open on the desk. The last entry from 3 months ago. What if I'm wrong? What if this destroys the last good part of me? Bryn picked up her pen and wrote, I wasn't wrong. It did. Hour 68. Declan's phone rang at midnight. Unknown number. Hello? His voice was hollow, defeated. The sound of a man watching his life collapse in real time. It's me, Bryn said. Silence. Then come to gloat? Come to talk. They met at their old spot, a bench in Brooklyn Bridge Park, where they'd had their first real conversation years ago, back when the world felt full of possibility instead of landmines. Declan looked terrible, unshaven, wearing the same clothes from yesterday, eyes carrying the weight of systematic destruction. You built Phoenix Syndicate, he said when she sat down. Not a question, a surrender. From my dorm room at 19. And I never knew. I didn't want you to know. I wanted someone to love me for me, not my empire. Stupid, right? Thinking I could separate them. Declan laughed, bitter and broken. We're a pair. You hiding success. Me hiding fear. Both of us too damaged to just be honest. They sat in silence, watching the Manhattan skyline glitter across the water. Why? Declan finally asked. Why marry me if you were this powerful? You could have had anyone. Because you made me laugh. Because you saw me at that gala looking lost. And you spent 2 hours talking about books instead of business. Because for 5 minutes, I felt like a person instead of a corporation. Bryn's voice cracked. I loved you, Declan. Actually loved you. And you tried to destroy me. I know. Tears streamed down his face. I was terrified. You were so smart, so capable, and I was faking competence every day, waiting to be exposed as a poor kid playing dress-up. When you talk about expanding Phoenix Syndicate, about taking risks, I panicked. I thought if you failed, you'd need me. If you succeeded, you'd leave. Fear makes monsters of us all. Turns love into strategy, vulnerability into weapons. You sabotaged Prometheus' contract, Bryn said. It was Shane's idea. She was my college girlfriend. Came back into my life a year ago. Found out about my marriage, your volunteer work, your quiet life. Convinced me you were hiding money, that I deserve half for putting up with your charity obsession. I was weak, stupid, drowning in old terror about poverty, and she offered a lifeline that was actually an anchor. Where is she now? Gone. Disappeared the moment things got complicated. Probably on to the next mark. Of course. Predators sense weakness. Feed. Move on. The SEC investigation. Declan said quietly. The frozen accounts. My business collapsing. That's you? Me and Torrance Webb. The real one. Turns out he doesn't like being framed. Am I go to prison? Probably. The offshore account request was textbook fraud. You recorded yourself agreeing to it. Declan nodded slowly, like he'd expected as much. I deserve it. All of it. I destroyed us, Bryn. I looked at the best thing in my life and decided it was a threat instead of a gift. That's on me. And here, in this moment, Bryn saw what Landry had seen. Not a villain. Just a terrified man who'd made catastrophic choices. Because trauma had convinced him safety required control. He's broken too. The thought arrived with devastating clarity. I could stop it, Bryn heard herself say. The investigation. The charges. I could make it go away. Declan looked at her, confused. Why would you? Because Landry was right. This isn't justice. It's just pain creating more pain. And I'm tired, Declan. I'm so tired of being angry. I stole from you, betrayed you, tried to ruin you, and I destroyed your business, manipulated your life, turned your girlfriend into a spy. We're both guilty of turning love into war. Bryn wiped her eyes. But maybe we can stop the cycle. Maybe I don't have to be the person this revenge turned me into. This is a real choice. Hold a knife or drop it. Stay wounded or risk healing. Declan stared at her like she was speaking a foreign language. You'd really do that? After everything? On conditions. You plead guilty to the contract, sabotage. You accept a plea deal, probation, community service, financial restitution over time. You rebuild from scratch, legitimately, and you never contact me again. You disappear from my life completely. That's mercy. That's exhaustion. I don't have the energy to hate you anymore. I want to go back to being the person who built something beautiful instead of the person who destroyed someone ugly." They sat in silence. Two people who'd loved each other badly, destroyed each other worse, and somehow arrive at the ruins together. "There's something you should know," Declan said finally. "In my apartment, hidden behind a loose floorboard in the bedroom closet, there's an envelope. Love letters I wrote you but never sent. Every anniversary, every birthday. Apologies for things you didn't know I'd done. Confessions I was too weak to say out loud. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserved honesty. You always did. And I was too broken to give it to you when it mattered." Bryn stood, looking down at the man she'd married, destroyed, and somehow circled back to. "Goodbye, Declan." "Goodbye, Bryn. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. And I hope you find someone who's brave enough to love all of you. The empire and the woman. You deserve that." She walked away without looking back. Tears streaming, heart cracking, so lighter than it had been in months. Hour 72. Bryn made 3 calls. First, to Torrance Webb. "The deal's off. Pull back the SEC investigation. Declan takes a plea deal for the original contract sabotage. Nothing more. I'll handle the legal logistics." Torrance was silent for a long moment. Then, "You're letting him off easy. I'm choosing not to become you. No offense." "None taken. For what it's worth, Miss Castellano, that takes more strength than revenge ever could." Second, to Landry. "You were right. About everything. I'm sorry I made you choose between friendship and conscience. Coffee tomorrow? I'm buying. We have a lot to fix." Landry's response came through tears. "I'll bring the tissues. And Bryn, I'm proud of you." Third, to Farah. "Shut down all surveillance on Declan Thorne. Delete the files. And send an anonymous donation to the Children's Literacy Foundation. $5 million. Use the money I would have spent destroying him and put it toward building something good instead. Consider it done, boss." Bryn stood in her office one last time, looking at the monitors that had consumed her life. Then she shut them all down. She went to Declan's apartment. The super let her in when she explained she was retrieving personal items. She found the envelope exactly where he'd described. Inside, dozens of letters, handwritten, raw, painful. "Dear Bryn, I'm terrified you'll realize I'm not good enough. Dear Bryn, I sabotaged the Thompson meeting today because I was jealous of your competence. Dear Bryn, I'm having an affair and I hate myself for it. Evidence of a man drowning, writing confessions instead of swimming. She burned them in her fireplace, watching years of betrayal and pain curl into ash. Some stories don't get happy endings. They get honest ones." 6 months later, Bryn Castellano stepped down as anonymous head of Phoenix Syndicate, transitioning to a public advisory role. She gave a TED Talk about women in tech, shared her story, minus the revenge plot, and became a face instead of shadow. It was terrifying and liberating. Declan Thorne served 2 years probation, performed 1,000 hours of community service teaching financial literacy to at-risk youth, and rebuilt his career slowly, quietly, without shortcuts. He sent Bryn one letter. "Thank you for giving me the chance to become someone better. I'm trying. DT." She never responded. Some chapters closed completely. Landry and Bryn repaired their friendship over months of difficult conversations, therapy sessions, and acknowledgement that love sometimes means calling out each other's darkness. And Torrance Webb? He funded Bryn's next venture, a non-profit connecting underprivileged students with tech mentorship. His daughter joined the board. Cycles break when people choose healing over history. Bryn sat in her new office, smaller, brighter, without surveillance equipment, and opened her journal. She wrote, "I built an empire to protect myself from vulnerability. Then I nearly destroyed my soul, defending it. Turns out the real power isn't control. It's choosing who you become when someone hurts you. Revenge is easy. Forgiveness is expensive. But becoming someone you're proud of? That's worth every painful dollar." She closed the journal and looked out at the city, no longer seeing targets or threats, just possibilities. In a rundown apartment in Queens, Declan sat at a second-hand desk, reviewing financial plans at a youth center where he volunteered. His phone buzzed, a news alert. Phoenix Syndicate founder Bryn Castellano announces $500 million education initiative. He stared at the photo. Bryn on stage, powerful and radiant, no longer hiding. And he smiled, sad, genuine, proud. "Good for you," he whispered to the screen. "You were always too big for small rooms." Then he returned to his work, building something smaller but honest, learning that significance doesn't require empire, just integrity. The end. So here's the question that matters. Did Bryn win or lose? She got revenge, then gave it up. She exposed betrayal, then chose mercy. She built an empire, then shared the throne. Drop your take in the comments. Is forgiveness strength or weakness? Have you ever chosen mercy over revenge? And what would you have done in Bryn's position? If this story hit you in the feelings, smash that like button. Subscribe for more complex character studies, and share this with anyone who's ever struggled between justice and healing. Because this right here, this is what real power looks like. Thanks for riding this emotional roller coaster with me. See you in the next story, and trust me, it's gonna be wild. Peace.